Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Wellness Wednesday with Dr. Latoya Wells. I am Dr. Latoya Wells, Doctor of Nursing Practice, Family Nurse Practitioner, and owner of Wells Legacy Health and Wellness. I'm here with you tonight for another episode. We're going to be discussing and continuing our discussion on mental health. But this week, we're going to be focusing in on the back to school kids, the kids that are going back to school, middle school, elementary, high school, those transitioning to college, and some of the things that they deal with as minorities in our society. So sit down, grab something to drink, and tune in. I want to say thank you before I jump into. Thank you to those of you who have referred your friends and family to come to us. Thank you for those of you who have sent amazing reviews about our services and your interactions with me as a clinician and provider. I'm so grateful. Keep sending the referrals. If you know someone who is looking for a new primary care provider in the area, let them know that we are accepting patients. We offer same day appointments. We offer early morning, evening, and weekend appointments. So virtual and convenient care. So care where you need it, care where it's convenient for you. So looking forward to connect with more individuals within our community. Looking forward to seeing some of you out and about in some of the networking events. If you hear of an event, let me know. Send me the information. Let's, share the information, because I'm all about making sure that I refer others to other businesses that it's not my wheelhouse and I don't offer those services. So I'm such a big proponent about sharing and networking with other individuals. So thank you all so much. Tonight, we're going to jump into a topic that is really close to my heart. I love children. I love everybody. But when it comes to kids, I have a soft spot in my heart for kids. And tonight we're going to be talking about the mental health struggles that they deal with. They're transitioning from summer break. Many of them have been out of school. They've been enjoying themselves on vacation, doing whatever it is they do. And now it's time to go back to school. So how do we deal with that? How do we help them transition smoothly? How do we, what are the warning signs? What are some of the things as parents and teachers and educators and healthcare providers that we need to be looking for when we are interacting with these kids? And as they're returning back to school, there's so many different things that they have to contend with. There's so many things that they have to focus on and try and gear their minds up for. And we're going to talk about that. You guys know I love statistics. Minority youth are more likely to experience mental health challenges and less likely to receive care. As we talked about minorities and the different disparities that are present in society when it comes to healthcare and other things, this is no different for our youth. If the parents are experiencing these disparities, then their children will also experience these disparities. And according to the CDC, Black youth suicide rates have nearly doubled in the past decade. Doubled for Black youth. Latinx youth report higher levels of persistent sadness and hopelessness than their white peers. LGBTQ plus youth of color face disproportionately high rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide ideations, thoughts of suicide. They don't feel like they fit in. They feel like they can't be them true selves. And it's important that we embrace everyone, no matter what their gender is, what they identify as, the color of their skin. We have to embrace everyone and provide a safe space for all. Mental health challenges often surface during and intensify during school transition. So if we have a child that's going from elementary to middle school, there's a different environment, different culture, different atmosphere, different people that they now have to get used to and introduce themselves to, and all of these things. So we begin to see the changes occur and things to begin to intensify, especially if they've been good at kind of hiding or masking their symptoms. Whenever they're going to a new environment, things begin to intensify. Same holds true with individuals going from middle school to high school and high school to college. And so we're going to talk about a lot of those things tonight. So new schedules. As I can remember, when I was younger, when I was in school, and when we were finishing up or ending up our summer break and getting ready to go back to school, we had our bedtime implemented again, right? And when I had my children, I made sure I slowly transitioned, or I tried to slowly transition them back into routine of getting ready for school and all of the things, right? But it can be difficult. And there's, disrupt the summer routine. It leads to sleep disturbances and increased irritability because these kids will sleep all day and be up all night, or vice versa. And now we're having to get them back into a routine. And the recommendation is to gently begin to start that routine a couple weeks, or even, a few weeks before they actually have to start going back to school. And now, and I don't know about other counties, but I believe in Orange County, some of the school start times have changed. Whereas the middle schoolers went to school later, I believe some are going to be going to school earlier, and same with high school. Then we have the elementary school, who had the older brother who would get him or her off to school, or pick them up after school. There's a lot of things to play, and that are going to go into play this school year when it comes to new schedules, academic demands, higher expectations, pressure to perform, comparison to others, comparing themselves to others, their classmates, especially when we're looking at those individuals that are in high school. They're preparing for college, and they're looking at GPAs and SAT score and ACT scores, if those tests are still around. And you guys see how outdated I am, because my daughter's been out of high school and has graduated from college, so I haven't had to think about it. But all of those standardized tests and those scores that are needed for college or trade school or what have you, if they're going to, they begin to compare themselves to their peers. Sports and extracurricular activities. I know we were a volleyball family, and there's the added time commitment and having to juggle and balance, and then performance anxiety, making sure that they're performing well in all areas. And if you have a student who is a student athlete, they are built differently. These student athletes have to be able to juggle multiple competing priorities and still be able to do well at all things, right? Because you can't play sports if your grades are in the tank. You can't, be involved in different things and look to get scholarships if you're not performing well on the court or in the sport that you're playing. And so it's a lot that they have to contend with. Social stressors, fitting in. I kind of talked about that a little earlier. Navigating peer groups, especially when there's transition, elementary to middle school. Those individuals who were at the same elementary school, now they go to different middle schools because of their geographic location and where they live. And so now you're used to your one friend group, and now you're having to transition to a different friend group. And, these people have been friends forever. And now you're there and trying to fit in and navigate the differences and, all the things. Bullying. We hear about bullying and suicide from individuals being bullied, and increase in crime and things like that because of bullying. The next thing is feeling like they're an outsider. I kind of spoke about that a little bit when it comes to transitioning into new environments and new schools, or middle school to high school, elementary to middle school, and feeling like they don't fit. And we begin to see anxiety, social anxiety, depression, changes in their sleeping pattern, changes in their eating patterns. And that's where we also begin to see more eating disorders come to pass or come into play, because there's that body image thing. And, there's a lot of transitioning that's happening in these individuals' lives. And there are also additional factors that they have to face. There's microaggression, racial identity conflicts, language barriers. When we speak of and we think of individuals who English is not their first language. And so there's a lot that these kids have to deal with. And it's so important that we provide resources and that we provide access for them to these different services that are definitely going to help them. There's also lower access to school counselors or culturally competent mental health providers who can relate to, or who the children can relate to, these kids can relate to. So it's definitely a lot that they have to deal with. And having things in place to help them transition, to help this transition, it's going to happen, right? Transition has to happen. Change is going to happen. But what can we do as parents, as teachers, as educators, as healthcare providers to help them transition smoothly? When it comes to social anxiety, depression, and how do we prevent it? So some of the common signs of social anxiety are avoiding eye contact or group activities. You may see them kind of standing off by themselves, sitting at lunch by themselves, or being on the bus, sitting all the way, in the back or in the front, not really talking to anyone. Or if they're standing in a group, they're just kind of standing off to the side. Physical symptoms such as sweating, trembling, nausea, major complaint that we get in healthcare in our office when it comes to youth that are dealing with, or young adults who are dealing with social anxiety or depression, is they have somatic symptoms. Like they have upset stomach, nauseous, they have, diarrhea, all of the things, or they complain of stomach pain, or they complain of headaches. But there's nothing physical. After we do all of the tests and all of the, evaluation, there's really nothing that would demonstrate why they're having these symptoms. And so when we begin to ask the questions about, how are you feeling down, hopeless, or depressed? Have you felt like you didn't fit in? Start asking those specific questions about their mental health. That's when we begin to see the light bulb go off. Okay, this is not a physical issue. There are some physical symptoms that are showing up, but they're dealing with anxiety. They're dealing with depression, things of that nature. So having a provider who's willing to do the deep work and ask the hard questions and do the assessment beyond what they see is definitely very important. So excessive worrying about being judged or embarrassed about who they are, what they look like, if they didn't do well on a test, or if they didn't perform well in their sport. There's so many things that can play into them having social anxiety and also make it worse. And so it's important that we know what the signs are, that we know how to treat it, we know how to help them manage it and provide them with the resources and support that they need. And it's so important. The next thing is depression in the youth or young and adolescents, persistent sadness or hopelessness, loss of interest in hobbies or school, changes in their appetite or sleep pattern, and then thoughts of harming themselves or suicide. And another thing is cutting. You'll begin to see that they're, cutting themselves, self-harm. Those are all signs of anxiety and depression, and it's an outward expression of what they're dealing with on the inside. And so what do we do to prevent this? One, having those open conversations. I encourage parents and teachers and guidance counselors and healthcare providers to have those open conversations. Normalize, how are you really feeling? I know I can remember I got into this routine of when my kids would come home from school. How was your day? Oh, it was good. Okay. And then I'm off, doing my thing. But it wasn't until I began to see some changes in behavior with, a little sadness, or they weren't as open to talking because maybe they're dealing with something that they didn't want to talk about or didn't know how to bring about and have that conversation. But asking those open-ended questions, not just the yes or no question, but those open-ended questions, and really just taking time to listen and allow them to know that they have a safe space. That's so important. Allowing them to know that they have a safe space. Creating a consistent sleep routine and morning routine definitely helps. When we have kids who have a consistent routine and know what to expect each day, they tend to do better. The anxiety and depression kind of, is able to manage it a little better if they know, versus everything's constantly changing. There's no routine, there's no structure. Things just kind of are up in the air all the time. That causes children to have, some issues. And I can remember when I was younger, I thrived with consistency. I thrived in environments that were well structured or where there was routine and I knew what to expect. Well, there was a lot of unknowns in my childhood when I was growing up, just because of, family dynamics and things of that nature. And it caused me a lot of anxiety. I didn't know what it was then, but looking back and reading some of my journals from when I was younger, I was like, I was dealing with some anxiety, or that's what that was, right? I was able to go back and identify, some of the things that I had dealt with based on things that were happening within the environment. Practice grounding techniques and mindfulness techniques. So helping them to learn deep breathing and journaling. Journaling was my outlet and still is. My husband would tell you, if you see me journaling and my pen is going to 10,000 miles a minute and I'm crying, or I'm, just really in thought, leave me alone. Let me get all my thoughts out on paper and then let me process that. And so a lot of times these children need that. Also adults need it, but we're focusing on the children today. So help them to develop outlets and things that they can use to help them get grounded, to help them, kind of get back focused and centered on what's going on, and take their minds off of what's going on and be in the present in that moment. And then movement, exercising definitely helps. But if you have a student athlete, they may utilize their sport or exercising to help mask or to escape from dealing with the issue. And I can say that's definitely true for adults as well. Encourage breaks from social media. There's been a lot of controversy about social media, and I believe there was a law that was passed that effective sometime in July that kids under a certain age could not have social media accounts. And is that a good thing? I'm not one to tell any one parent what to do with their children. What I will say is monitor and then ensure that they're on safe sites, and that for the younger kids and even some of the older kids, that parental features and settings are put in place to where these kids are not being exposed to things that they shouldn't be, and to people who shouldn't be contacting them. So let's just be mindful of that, parents and teachers and those who are caring for these children. Set realistic expectations. So progress over perfection. And I can tell you, I was a perfectionist. I was textbook case of perfectionist. I wanted to get everything right the first time. I didn't want to make a mistake. I was a straight A student. I cried when I got a B. I cried when things didn't turn out the way that I thought they would academically, because for me, my academic was going to be my way out. Getting good grades, going to college was going to be the way that I knew that I would be able to have a better life as I got older. And not that my childhood was horrible. Everybody deals with different things. It's just that I had different goals and dreams and visions. And I knew from a young age that I wanted to be a nurse. And in order to do that, I needed to get good grades. And so I'm grateful for my parents. I'm grateful for my upbringing. But I knew that for me, I wanted to be a nurse. And I needed to get good grades. And I felt like I couldn't go to school to be a nurse if I had B's or C's, that I had to get straight A's. And I was so much harder on myself than others. And I see that a lot, that these children and these young adults and these adolescents and teens put so much pressure on themselves. We notice withdrawing from family and friends, explosive anger or emotional outbreaks are all signs of that we as parents and caregivers and teachers and educators and providers need to be aware of. And what do we do when those things happen? As I mentioned earlier, we want to have those honest conversations and talking about when they are talking about feelings of worthless or like they're a burden. We need to pay attention. And it may not come out that way, but it may come in different words, but they're trying to communicate to you that they feel like they're a burden, or they feel like they're not worth anything, or their life is not worth anything. We need to pay attention to that and taking time to have those conversations with them and digging deep to find out what's going on, and then getting them the help that they need. So when to get help: when the behavior lasts more than 2 weeks, or it begins to interfere with daily functioning. They're not able to get up in the morning and they're just sleeping all day. They're not eating. They're self-harm. We don't see that they're getting better with, talking and providing them with all the other resources that we spoke about. It's time to get professional help for them. So seek professional support in a therapist, the school counselors, and their pediatrician or their healthcare provider can also help provide some support and resources that they need to have the support that they need and get all of the services that they may have access to. So for parents, be present without judgment. Our kids are dealing with so much, and it wasn't until I sat and I talked with my now adult children, understanding some of the things that they had to deal with was mind-blowing. And it was on not anywhere near the scale of things that I had to deal with when I was younger. That stuff that I dealt with when I was younger in school and with peers and things of that nature was in a different category to what these kids are having to deal with today. Establish mental health check-in routinely. Have that. Like, I can remember I was in this group with other married women. It was called Left Hand Ladies. And we would do this check-in where someone will post, "Hey sis, how you doing?" And several other groups that I've been in. "Hey ladies, how you doing? Place a heart in this color." And there was a scale on what the heart meant. If you're having a good day, if you're having a bad day, if you need someone to talk to, if you need to vent, what have you. And we would post the different colors based on what we were feeling like in that day. So provide a routine or establish a routine to where you can have those mental health check-ins. And it could be something as simple as having something on the refrigerator or something on the phone where you're texting back and forth, just something that you can reach out and establish that routine and make it so that it's not so intrusive and that they're now used to having these conversations with you. And then encouraging positive social connection. So outside of the home, whether it's at a church or, youth group or what have you, the community center, within their sports team, their neighborhood, what have you, encourage that interaction. More so now we have kids that are in the house playing the games, what have you, instead of being out. I can remember we used to be outside all the time, but things have changed and that's okay. But we want to make sure that we're providing a safe space for them and validating their feelings without trying to fix it immediately. I'm a fixer. And so when my kids would come to me, before they're even done, I already have calculated and formulated in my head a plan of action on how we can fix the thing. But I learned to ask, do you need my help, my advice, or you just need me to listen? And if they say, I just need you to listen, I just sit and I listen and I try not to fix it immediately, because things usually work out on its own. But when it doesn't and they need help, at least they know that they have the support from me to help them through that. So what can teachers do? Build trust and relationships early. Just like adults who go to work, we spend a lot of time with our work family and those individuals, our colleagues that we're with 8 hours out of the day. The same holds true for the teachers and the students. Our kids spend a lot of their time during their day with the teachers. And so being able to build a relationship and trust early, it's so important. Watch for quiet suffering. The students that are withdrawing, those that are frequently absent from school or showing signs of irritability or anxiety. Representation matters. It's so important that they have diverse voices within the classroom and that they have individuals in leadership, educators, counselors, principals, you name it, that look like them, that they can identify with, and offer safe spaces for them. So classroom routines that allow for emotional expression. I can remember when I was in, I think it was 8th grade, our one teacher had a corner that if we came in and we were just having a bad day, she had several little almost like reclining chairs set up over in the counter in the corner for us. And we can just go over there and sit for however long we needed. And if we just needed a mental health day from class that day, then we had that space to be able to do that. And I was so grateful for her, because there were some days where I just couldn't. And I didn't want to. I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to be talked to, but I knew I can go and have that safe space with her and in her classroom. And it didn't even have to be her period. I didn't have to be in her class during that period. If I just needed to get away or have a break or just go and sit, I had that space that was provided for me. And it was very important. Offer partnerships with them. So partner with the school counselors and the families to make sure that we're getting the resources and that we know who to reach out when there's a problem, and not that we're reaching out only when there's a problem, but we've established those relationships pretty early on. And model vulnerability and emotional honesty and normalize seeking help. Many times there are so many stigmas that are floating around about individuals going to seek help. I tell you, Jesus, therapy, and Peloton saved my life during the pandemic. And I say that with all honesty. Jesus, therapy, and Peloton saved my life during the pandemic. I don't know where I would be without those 3 things. My faith, being able to speak with someone and be vulnerable and share all of the feelings and all of the things, and then exercising helped me to stay focused and grounded. And it also made me feel better. So just to recap, minority youth face so many different and unique mental health pressures, especially during school transition time. Open communication, consistency, systems, and early intervention are so integral and so important. Parents, teachers, and communities all play a role in making sure that these kids, our teens, adolescents have the support that they need to transition effectively and have a successful and healthy, physically and mentally, school year. This is Dr. Latoya Wells with Wells Legacy Health and Wellness. I just want to say thank you all so much for taking time to be here for this live and to join. If you know someone who has a school age child, someone who's either from elementary all the way up to going to college, that they may benefit from some of this information or something that I may have said tonight, share that information, encourage them, tag someone, comment. It's important. If you have a key takeaway that you want to share with someone, put it in the chat for me. If you know of someone who could benefit from a mental health evaluation, or they're having some symptoms and don't know what's going on, they need to connect with a healthcare provider, give them our information and refer them to our practice so that we can help them. I'm not a mental health specialist, but I have taken care of mental health individuals who have mental health issues and mental health conditions. And so I'm well versed in that as well. But I do know that there's many times where specialists are needed, and I'm able to refer and make connections in that area for those individuals. Together, we can help our children feel safe, seen, and supported. Mental health is health, and every child deserves to thrive. I'm going to leave you with that tonight. This is Dr. Latoya Wells with Wells Legacy Health and Wellness. Stay safe and be well. Until next time, we'll see you later.